Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Zulu's Painting Show, the show where I do my best to impart as much of my painting knowledge to you as I can in about an hour segment, while channeling as much Bob Ross as I can muster. I'm working very hard not to wiggle my camera this time, because I noticed last episode it was bouncing a lot. Today we're going to be diving into some Dungeons & Dragons miniatures. Now, if you've been to Zulu's Board Game Cafe, you've been into their D&D section, you know that there is a wall of miniatures. They come in packs of 2, and they're usually about $5 a piece. They're divided by race, class, and I think just race and class. So you can get like a dwarf wizard or a human fighter, that sort of thing. There's also some terrain and a bunch of monsters. Now they all come primed with white primer, and that's it. They don't even actually come glued to their bases, which is an important detail. You want to make sure you got a little bit of super glue to get those bases stuck to the miniatures themselves, because a big cape, while it looks awesome, makes your model more likely to fall over. So the question becomes, what do you do with those beautiful models now that you got them? Or 40 of them? I'm not going to point fingers, but if I had to. Anyway, so today what we're going to be diving into is the techniques that I would use to take that miniature from the box to tabletop ready in hopefully about an hour. Let's dive over to our canvas and have a look at what we're working with. So I've included a link to this particular model in the description. If you're looking to get her, you get her and another one, both of them with spells going. Now, if you'll notice, there's already some paint on this model. That's because when we start diving into the first layer, contrast paints take some time to dry. So this is, essentially, I'll be showing you the first steps on this guy. We'll switch back to her, do some detail work, and then if we're lucky, we'll get back to this guy. If not, we'll continue week after next. So, this is typically what one of the miniatures fresh out of the box would look like after you've managed to glue their base on. So they have these little round plastic bases. They're an inch across for a medium-sized creature. If you have larger ones, they'll have bigger bases. But this is sort of your standard player character miniature. So I hemmed and hawed for a good long time today to try and figure out how I want to paint this guy up. He's got the three sort of major... Oh, that white is terrible. I'm going to reduce our light level for a moment while we look at him in his white form. So your three sort of main colors that you're looking at for this guy, and you could paint it a little differently. Remember, each one of these guys is your own sort of unique character. Feel free to sort of explore the space and figure out what works best for you. For this guy, I noticed that he has this cape, this tunic, and these pants here. The shoes, I'm going to do just good old-fashioned leather shoes, but for the colors, I was trying to come up with how I wanted to do it. So what we'll be doing today is we're going to be making his cape is going to be the turquoise. You'll recognize that from my Clan Invasion paint job that I've been working on. For his tunic, we're going to go ahead and go with this, I don't know, Velopus? Yeah, this pink. And then his pantaloons, we're going to do a nice skeleton horde. Then while those are drying, we'll pop back over to her, start doing some sort of detail work and show kind of what things you can do to bring out details. Also, very importantly, you'll notice that both of these guys have their face and hands are exposed. So I'm going to be going over a little bit on how to do flesh colors. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first thing we're going to start with is we're going to start at the lowest level, because it's always easier to start at the bottom and work your way up. So we're going to go ahead and grab our skeleton horde. Give that a quick shake. I've gone with a lazy route, and I have a paint shaker just off frame. That's what that humming sound is the living pants being shaken out of this paint. Alright. Now, you could definitely, if you have a wet palette or a dry palette, put some of this onto it. I pull straight from the pot because I'm lazy. And I'll be pulling today with the our monster brush, our army painter. There it is, monster brush. So, contrast paints are nice because they have a very long sort of working time. They take a bit to dry. They function a lot like washes in that they'll, for the most part, sort of move to the recesses of your model. They have pretty good coverage, and all in all, for a base coat, I find that they're pretty convenient to use. Now, I'm doing for this first layer on the pants, I'm doing a nice light color. We're gonna have a lot of very vibrant colors on the rest of the model, so I figured, you know, let's not have the pants be the thing that really gets the attention of the people. That's because that's what this model does. If you have a character that you think to yourself, this guy needs to have pants that are just as vibrant and interesting as I'll get out, well, then you should make your pants very vibrant. That's what's nice, especially about these miniatures, is they're really just a great canvas to really sort of explore your colors and how you want to, what you want to do with them. Now, because I'm going to be going with darker colors, I don't mind if I get a little extra here and there. But we got that first brown color. It's pretty quick, pretty easy. Rinse off your brush. Go ahead and dry it. And remember, as you dry your brush, much like when you're using your wet palette, if you spin it, you'll keep that tip nice and pointed. All right, don't forget to close your pots. You don't want to have them spill on you. Next, we're going to go to our unpronounceable pink. Give that a quick shake. Always shake your paints. They on occasion will try to separate on you, and I've mentioned this before, and I feel I should mention it again. If you have paints that have separated, it's kind of like getting the water out of your mustard container. It's not really quite very tasty, not really what you're looking for. So I'm going to start underneath this cloak, really sort of dive in, and again, for contrast paints, much like washes, you can really water down, really fill up that paintbrush. Because you really want to make sure that you're getting good coverage, especially with contrasts, because they don't sort of run to the nooks and crannies the same way your washes will. Now, with the other contrasts still being wet, you got to be careful not to get your contrasts onto each other. Also, be real careful of this clear plastic part here, because we're going to play around with that a little bit later, but we want to make sure not to get things on there that we don't want. And we're just going to make sure we get good coverage. Make sure to do the undersides of the arms, the armpits. As you can see, the paint is tending to pool a little bit in the sort of recesses. That's good, because that'll create a little bit of depth to the models before we get to our layering stage. So to help inform where we should make sure there's some layering. And again, the colors that I'm going with are just the first colors that I got. And you could have decided that you wanted to make the cloak and the tunic the same color, and that would have been perfectly fine. There are, gotta make sure to get the underside of here, but without having it bleed onto the pants. There's also, as you can see, a little sort of undershirt here. We could have made that a different color if we wanted, but I figured since we're trying to get this done relatively quick, we'll just sort of make it all the same color. Now, there's this little band here right at the wrist. You can kind of see it. I'm going to be making sure that that is a slightly different color. You can see it there on the edges as well. I'll do a trim on this guy, because I think that'll make it a little bit more visually interesting. This fabric is probably only going to get this layer as the only bit on there. It's got enough character to it that I think it'll be able to pull its weight as far as visual interest goes. All right, that's 2 fabrics down already. We've just gotten started. Let me clean off your brush again. Close your paint pot so you don't make a mess. Now we're going on to a real fun part. I always enjoy working on cloaks because they're just such a fun opportunity to play around with your lines and your colors. It's just a big open canvas. I'm going to head over to our Pterodon turquoise contrast. Get that guy open. If you've ever wondered on the Citadel paint pots why they've got this little funny flange on the back, that's because it's meant to hold the lid up, just like this. All right, and then we're just going to fill that brush up, and we're just going to get that whole cloak. Being sure to not get the hair, because we're going to make the hair a different color. To be honest, I'm not sure what color hair it'll go with yet. Could just go with a nice deep brown. We've got our brown contrast out. Wouldn't be hard to just put that on there. Maybe he's got interesting color hair. I don't know. We'll sort of see what calls to us. And we want to do the skin probably before we do the hair, though, just because you want to do the bottom part first. The sort of the hard to reach spots. Do those first, so in case you get some paint where you don't want it, it's not going to be getting on the paint job that you've already done. Now you've got this whole under part of the cloak to get. Try to get that whole thing. Now if you wanted, you could make the underside of the cloak a different color. I feel like that's a kind of a classic thing to do. Now, if you have a cloak that has a second color, that means that your cloak is made out of two fabrics. This is if you were to be wearing a real cloak, not just having a plastic one. So that means a couple things to consider when you're painting, or when you're working on that part of your model. Now, firstly, getting two fabrics sewn together in a large piece like that is not necessarily a very simple task. So you'd have to have someone who had the sort of time and effort and inclination to make a two-layer cloak. If you've got this sort of character that's sort of constantly on the run, they just sort of don't have time to work on projects. If they made their cloak, the cloak wouldn't be two-sided. They would have just taken a piece of fabric, thrown it over their shoulders, and called it good. But if they're the sort of person that has maybe some more money, want to show the fact that they have money to spend on tailors to make a nice cloak, then that might be a good reason to have it. Another reason you'd have a two-sided cloak is if your character is in a particularly cold weather place. Of course, the opposite is true as well. If your character is in a particularly warm environment, they probably wouldn't have a two-layered cloak, because that would get very hot. So these are the things to consider. You gotta, let how your paint is on the miniature determine, sort of talk to the character a little bit. See, what I've done is I've not let it dry. I'm pushing the paint around, so I'm making a mess. Kind of like when you're grilling something and you keep just poking around at the food. Just let it sit there. Let it dry. All right. So with a character like this is clearly someone that's going to be either spending time in a city, or someone who doesn't care about trying to be particularly stealthy, because none of these are colors that would really appear sort of in nature. So clearly this guy doesn't really care whether or not he's seen, or spends a lot of his time in urban environments. All right. So do we have... Yeah, let's go ahead and get those boots done. And then we'll let him dry, and while he's drying, we'll move on to our other character over here. I'll be honest, I had a little bit of trouble with the colors because I kept wanting to put purple with this pink, but she's already got that purple cloak. Plus, as we've learned from these guys here, purple sometimes gives me some trouble with the camera. So instead of fighting with that, we'll try something else. I know that I have a bias towards greens and purples. They are my favorite colors. So every once in a while, it's nice to sort of get out of my own personal comfort zone and try some new colors. Make sure that all my minis don't look the same, because, you know, these are representing different people in your world, and not everybody in your world maybe looks the same. Maybe some of them have slightly different colors and looks. We can go ahead and get a little bit on this here base, because we'll be putting some stuff on that. His cloak seems to be putting shadow on where I'm trying to work. It's fine for me, but not great for the camera. Oh, such a dark color here. And I'm right next to my magic, so I gotta make sure the two don't meet. Real shame if they did. But not the end of the world. Gotta channel our Bob Ross as much as possible. You know, happy little... They're not mistakes. They're opportunities to make interesting choices. There we go. Getting these boots done. That's one of the reasons I like these contrast paints for the base color. It's because they're sort of thin and very vibrant colors. You can really just throw them on the model just with relative abandon. Gets a good base layer going, then you can start taking your time. Now, I understand that some people really enjoy this first step of getting those colors down and making sure they're exactly what they're looking for. And you should enjoy that. If that's what you enjoy about model painting, then you should do it. That's really what I like doing with my Battletech miniatures. Each one of those guys is a character, and I like to spend my time making sure that each one has the right sort of look that I'm going for. And don't get me wrong, I think D&D minis are also the same, but in an ironic twist, I have more D&D mini than I do Battletech. Probably because I've been playing D&D for a bit longer than Battletech. And it turns out you need a lot of very specific guys to run D&D games. Now, if this was your character, if you're a player, then you really want to spend the time thinking about exactly what looks good and how you want to do it, and, you know, all that kind of thing. But, oh, there's some red there, needs to get fixed. And a little bit of turquoise. I find a lot of times, as I go from one color to the next, I start looking back and noticing other places that I've missed color, so... Got a couple spots. I'm just going to clean it up now, just so we don't have to worry about it later. He's already drying up pretty quick. Just convenient. Where was it? I was just looking at it. Oh, there's a little bit there on his clothes. Yep. And then, where else was it? It was armpit. Oh, there it is. Right there at the bottom of the cloak. Now I'm going to be doing the edging, but I'd rather have the red all the way to the edge, because I don't want to be missing any of the color. And since we got it, I'm gonna darken up this color just a little bit. Make a nice vibrant pinky red. I really enjoy this color. It's a very fun one. I gotta make sure I get a nice even look to it, otherwise it'll look as though his cloak is faded. Now you could do that if you wanted. Maybe that's his character. Maybe he's had this tunic for so long and hasn't been repaired in so long that it's begun to sort of fade in a couple spots. That's a choice you could make. That's what's fun about painting minis, is you really get to tell a story with how you paint them. Just a little bit on the cloak. It's right here at the neckline. All right. All right, so now we're going to set him aside for a minute. Head over to this guy. I think, you know what? We should probably start with the flesh colors. Mostly because we got both of them, and that's, I think, something that's that I haven't really had a chance to focus on yet, so be a good place to look. Now, if we wanted, we could make this this leg here as if she wasn't wearing sort of pantaloons or high boots, but there's not really a distinct line here. I'll turn this down again. You can't really see a distinct line where her shoe begins and her pants end. Or you kind of can. You know, that ruffle there to me says pant leg. Plus, I feel like it would be a little bit more modest to give her full-length pants. So, a couple things we want to do. Let's go ahead, you know what, let's start with the flesh color. That way we don't get too far from that. So, we're going to be doing a, let's see, we got a couple different options. We're going to go ahead and start with this, how do you pronounce that? You know, I don't entirely know. These names are always so difficult to pronounce. Let's start with the orange. I'm going to cover the skin with the orange color. Give this a quick shake. I gotta remember to keep turning the volume on because I've definitely muted myself for the last bit of one of the paintings. So, to get we're going to go ahead and go to our wet palette for this one. So we're going to use the back of one of my brushes, just take and cover it with a little bit of that paint. Take and just roll it off the brush onto our wet palette. Rinse it off. Don't forget to rinse off your brush properly. Get it cleaned off. Now we're going to our workhorse brush, the regiment brush. I use this guy for quite a bit. It's got a pretty sharp tip, but it's got enough bristles that you can really get some paint in it. All right. She's only got a couple places where the skin is. So let's go ahead and put it on there. So we've got the back of the hand here, and we got to be careful not to get her magic. Let's see. It's always the tough part is when the magic things butt right up against the rest of it. And we'll probably put some color on this magic just because make it a little bit more fun. If you have this sort of clear plastic like this and you use a wash or a contrast, something that's a little bit thinner, or just even your thin down layer paints, it'll show through a little bit and have an amount of opacity, which is nice. All right, so got the orange on there. Got this little fist here. Now, because I got this the purple wash on this hand, we're probably gonna have to do a couple layers just to make sure it actually looks orange as opposed to the purple showing through. Yeah. All right, and now for the difficult part. So when it comes to faces, I always try to make sure that I've got even paint on my brush, but not too much. Because you really don't want to gum up the details of your face. Now, this one in particular isn't terribly detailed, but all the more reason why we need to do thin layers to make sure we don't lose what detail we have. And this is really an experiment on sort of familiarizing yourself with how much paint you have on your brush. Also, this is why you start at the low points, because when we come back through, we're gonna hit the we're gonna do her hair, and that'll clean up sort of some of the messes we've done. Man, we're doing a little bit. Oh, man. Yeah, I should have done the neck first. I always do the flesh last because I forget sometimes. So we're just gonna, oh, the cloak and the hair are gonna get done, so that'll be fine. The key is to make sure that all the flesh parts get that first layer. Now, right now she's quite orange, but that's because we want to start with a good base color. And I feel like flesh is definitely one that you really are sort of using that concept of undercoat, because you want to create, skin has a very sort of interesting, it's a lot of depth and color to it. Sure, it's sort of pinky flesh color, but you can also see there's kind of a red underneath. And that's why we're starting with this orange color as our base, so that as we cover it with those other tones, it'll add more sort of depth to it. Now, I will admit, there is definitely a tendency towards my miniatures to be Caucasian, and that's largely just because, well, I am Caucasian. So it's a lot easier to sort of hold my hand next to the miniature and say, "Ah, this is a color that I recognize." But what I'd like to do in a video later is to talk a little bit about how to do different flesh tones and how they're different. That will definitely take some more practice on my part to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Which is to say, the base concept of multiple layers is always sort of the same. With flesh, you're playing a lot more with the concept. Oh, got some white shown under there. With flesh, you're definitely playing along a lot more with the concept of having slightly different colors as your undercoats. So that is a thing to be sort of aware of. And again, when you're doing those spots that need to come up to lines, setting your brush down on, not lines, sorry, borders, like the flesh and the hair, setting your brush down on the part and sort of pushing it up to where you're going can be a good way to help out with that. Also, have I been out of focus this entire time? Oh, I'm very sorry. I'm trying to find a good working distance. There we go. So we've got some, and again, I know this looks a little strange to begin with, but we'll get it worked out. All right. So we've got our first layer. And the technique I usually use for flesh is very much the classic three layer technique. So you start with your base color, you then hit it with a wash, you then go over it with some highlights. So we're going to use our flesh shade, unsurprisingly. So the flesh shade is an interesting color because it's a little bit brown, it's a little bit red. It's, oh no, it's in my paint. It's a good color. It's a fun color. As is sort of always the case, playing around with the color of your wash will definitely change sort of the tone of the skin. You know, let's go ahead and do that. Now, since I said it, I feel like I should definitely do. So we're going to go ahead and grab a slightly darker wash, the Agrax Earthshade. And we're going to go ahead and use that for one of these guys as well. Let's see. Yeah, let's give her the Earthshade and we'll give him the Flesh Shade. And so now the wash is going to help us bring back those details. And just a little bit on here. Oh, I'll be honest. This particular face does not have the best details on it, but that's okay. We got the parts that are sort of prominent. You know, you can see sort of the eye sockets and the nose and the cheeks, and we'll bring those out with the layering a bit more. Luckily, the hands are delightfully easy to do because they've got all those little precise creases. So a little bit of a wash over those helps quite a bit. All right. So hers are started. Let's go to his. Oh, we're just booking right along. I have plenty of time to work on these guys. That's exciting. So I think really with these models in particular, because they have such sort of delightful little details sort of here and there, that's really where they start to sing, is when you start pulling out those details. Oh, don't want to get them too washed. We want to bring up those details again, but we don't want to go too crazy. So yeah, as you can see the kind of difference between the two, this is a little bit more of just a little bit more sort of red, a little lighter browns. Oh, his eye is hidden away. Yeah, this is really where you start to see the modeling detail. And we've talked about this before of a well sort of sculpted miniature goes a great distance in helping your painting. Ooh. There we go. I'm just going to wick out a little bit of that. There we go. Try to bring those details back, but that'll be interesting. By interesting, I mean a pain in the butt. All right. So now we're gonna have to switch to our. We're definitely gonna need to switch to our character brush. So we can get into the characters of the model. Oops, I'm sorry. Also, what is happening? We're gonna go ahead and go to Arcadian Flesh Tone for these guys. You know, I have a bunch of sort of generic soldier models that I've collected over the years. I might use those to try to experiment with different sort of flesh tones and colors and things. be a fun experiment, and then I'll take my findings and we can learn stuff together. So I have to decide what color to do this nice gal's pants. She's got a couple different colors happening here. I might go with sort of a darker color on the pants. My plan is to use this guy, our Doombull Brown, on her sort of corset that she's wearing here, and then use that as the undertone so I could, hit it with some brass, because I think brass is a very interesting and pretty color, and I think it would go good with her sort of overall motif. So I can hit both of those with that, and then just do some layering on the pants, and then the metallics on her corset, and then they'll look very different. I like, whenever possible, I like to try and use the same color, but with sort of slightly different techniques you can put on top of it to change the look very wildly. It's a lot of fun for me. And not just because I'm a lazy painter. Because I like seeing how just a little bit of change of like your wash or another thing can change the look of your mini. Now, for the hands, we're just doing small vertical strokes. We're trying to really emphasize that sort of feel of the hand bones. You've got a handful of ridges that you want to really try and emphasize. And that's going to be even more so in the open hand, because you can see so much more of it. So we're going to try and just hit the tops of those fingers. That's a hard thing to do because they're very small fingers, but that's okay. Remember, if you spin your brush on your palette, it'll bring it to a point. There we go. And again, largely what we're trying to do is create this sort of look of sort of depth on the fingers. Like flesh is a very has a lot of depth to its color. Is that working any better? Might need to darken this guy a little bit so you can see the. Well, should be fine. All right, so now we're going to go to the face. Our eagle-eyed viewers will notice that there's a little kind of spot where I sort of push the paint off of her cheek. That is okay, because kind of the places you want to focus with your highlight on faces are the cheeks, the nose, and the forehead. And you don't really need to go too crazy on the extra colors. You're just using that same layering technique to add a little character to the face. Faces are one of those things that's very hard to paint, and it makes it even harder when your model doesn't have a lot of detail left in it. It'd be easy to sort of blame the amount of primer this thing has on its face. So when you're priming your models, be sure not to go too crazy, especially around the face. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of those details. It makes it really hard to make them look good when you don't have a lot of detail. So I'm gonna kind of call that good for now. It's with a sculpt like that, it's hard to really make it beautiful. Plus, we'll do some stuff to try and distract from that. So again, we're picking out the finger bones, especially around the knuckles. Any sort of really high spots, especially spots that would have the skin sort of pulled tight over the bone. That's where you're going to get that lightening of the skin, where it's going to to really show off some more of those details. Now is when I get quiet and concentration. We have such small details on this hand. There we go. And you're really trying to only hit the high points, leaving those recesses with a little bit of paint. So I got a little bit of a boo-boo there, but that's okay. It's also particularly important to be sort of careful for these ones because, you know, especially this hand, because it's sort of the top of your model. Because remember, you'll see most of your models from about this sort of angle here, not this distance, but about this sort of angle, maybe this sort of angle. Because a lot of times they'll be sitting on the table. So making sure you get good cloaks and nice hands on the top, those are important things to worry about. Whereas, you know, like sort of the underside of him here, sorry, it's just my thumb, the underside of him here, you're not going to be seeing that as much. So like the underside of that cloak, you don't need to really worry as much about that. It's good to have paint on it because it's not like you're not going to see that. But you maybe don't want to put as much detail as maybe, say, something on the top of the head. I'm just doing a couple layers of this lighter color to really kind of bring away from that orange. I think the orange is a good sort of undercoat, but you know, now we're getting our highlights. So again, forehead, the nose, and the cheeks. Any place that if you were to be shining a light down would show up. Do a little bit on the chin too. There we go. See a lot more of those details of his face. He does look like he's getting hit in the head. Oh boy. All right. So let's go back to her. Let's go back to that brown color. Actually, I might take that brown color over onto him as well. He's got that belt. And he's got a couple other details I'm going to play around with. I might, you know what I could do? He's got this staff he's holding that has kind of an interesting look to it. Although it looks like it has two materials. That's going to be interesting. We'll come back to that. So, there we go. Got a little flesh on him. Got a good start for that. We'll just go ahead and... We may come back to it. We'll see how it looks as a whole. A lot of times, especially with flesh on things like this, I'll end up sort of, you know, depending on how the model as a whole looks, will sort of determine how much more detail I need to put into the flesh. So we're switching. We're going to grab some Doom Bull Brown. Put that on a paint palette. You know, the Doom Bull Brown could be our caster's hair color. Have to play around with that. Firstly, it needs to be this lovely gal's paint color. And we'll probably end up giving her black shoes, just as a nice sort of accent. Yeah. See, and just by adding that color, we've already really sort of created that line. There wasn't a really distinct line between her her pants and her shoes, but now that we've put that color there, you definitely tell there are two different things there. Be very careful not to get the brown onto the blue of her undershirt. Now, you could definitely paint this this part that she's wearing as it's part of the same fabric or color. I see those ridges though there, and those to me just look like the sort of different plates of metal. Plus, I mean, she's an adventurer. She'd be wearing armor of some sort. To me, it makes sense that that would be what we're looking at. I'm just going to get this whole area with the brown. This cloak. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do a part 2 for these guys, especially because I wanna dive into kind of how to do the contours of the cloak. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But we need to get our base colors done and get the cloak ready to do. I like to be able to have a little extra time to talk about flesh colors and tones and the look. Now, we don't need 100% coverage with this color because this is just we're using this as our, especially up here, our undercoat for the metallic. I've definitely thinned out this brown because you can see, you can't really see it right now, but a little bit actually. The undercolor of blue has sort of dried through. It was peeking its way out. I want to make sure I don't have too much on here. Don't want to lose those details, especially because I'm going to be putting another layer over top of this one. So I'm just going to make sure. So what I've done is I've just cleaned out, just dried out my brush, or washed out my brush. And now I'm just painting it with the brush with no paint in it. I mean, it's picking up the paint because I'm moving around the still wet paint, so. And we're just going to do a third layer of the brown here on the pants, just to make sure that that brown color is the only one that you see. There we go. All right, so we got the pants on there. Now, as I've been working on this, there's part of me that wonders, do I want to do sort of a fun, crazy color for the hair? I don't know. I don't know. Could just do a very vibrant red. Let's do that. It'll be a fun color combo. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to start with a base of our pink. And then we're going to do some sort of darker washes over the top of it. And we'll try to make it look more like a natural red. Who knows if that'll be achieved, but you know what? That's what we're here for. We're experimenting. Plus, prestidigitation as a spell allows you to change the color of a surface. So the potentially you could have a color or a character with magically enhanced hair color. Nothing else. The contrast is nice because it shows off all those different sort of ridges and lines in the hair. So when we come back over with other colors, it'll be easier to tell what's going on. Gotta make sure not to get her skin. We spent all that time getting it colored. Sure would be a shame if we just made it bright red. Oh, there we go. Now, honestly, at this point, you could probably just throw this on the table and call that good. She's got color on essentially everything. Ooh, kind of hard to see that, get that little cloak area there. Couple spots, so we'll have to try and clean that up. Got a little brown on the tip of the cloak. Got some mistakes here and there, but, you know, this would definitely be passable. But I think we can do more. I think we can make it a little bit better. Oh yeah. I think that's a fun addition, right? Give her a nice, interesting hair color. Now. Alright, so let's get that metal. Yeah, we've still got some time. Yeah, we've got some time. Let's get some metal on there. Get a wash on that, and that'll be all we got time for today. We have to get some of these colors out of the way. I got some very interesting colors on my dry palette. I was doing some painting of some other minis, and I have some very colorful metallics that we're going to use. So, we might play around with those a little bit with these guys, but we unfortunately don't carry those at the store anymore, so I'm hesitant to use colors that you guys can't easily get. Because you know what? I wanna help you guys be able to paint your minis. If you can't get the paints, how can you paint your minis? Alrighty, and again, we're gonna take and just roll our. Oh, you know what? We're only doing metallics for the rest of today, so that's okay. I even have my metallics water. I forgot to use it. That's okay. We're not using any of the colors, so it'll be fine. And I've got a second regiment brush. You don't need to have different brushes for all of the things, but I like having the different options. Now, so we've got two materials here. We've got her corset and her belt. I'm kind of thinking. Oh man. For pity's sake. I just noticed. Completely missed a big section on her leg. Look at that. Look at all that white. It's honestly, the paint on these are definitely a double-edged sword, because the white makes it very easy to see where you've missed, but then simultaneously the white makes it very easy to see what you've missed. So it's a pretty unforgiving color. Alright. Now we've actually gotten it. Honestly, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking that pink might just stay. Alright. Yeah, we're definitely doing corset as the metallic. You know, in hindsight, I should have left. You know what? We still can, you know what? We can do this metallic on a different surface. And you can kind of see the difference between the two colors. We got this here staff over on our caster. You know what? I'm going to do a slightly different color for her belt. Oh, got a little bit in the blue. That's okay. We can come back and fix it. Yeah. And those dagger hilts will get a different color in a little bit, but for now, yeah, I'm thinking like a silver. The belt. Maybe even do the actual like straps as like a different color, and then this clasp as the metal. I don't know. We'll have some time to think about it between the now and the next part. Alright. So there's that done there. So we've got a nice metallic. So let's compare. So we've got our... So this one had the Doombull Brown as the undercoat. And then we hit it with our... What is this? Runelord Brass. Now this guy is going to get the Runelord Brass just directly on the staff. I'm going to see sort of the difference in color. There may not be an appreciable one, but I have definitely found on occasion, especially with some of the other metallics, it'll sort of change the overall tone. Also, I think I'm putting it on kind of heavy. Gotta make sure not to get my skin. I think what I'm also going to do for this one is I want to give, because it has a kind of a snaky look to it, kind of want to hit the, oh, careful. Kind of want to hit this whole staff with a green wash. It won't change the color a lot, but it'll change it enough that I think it might be interesting. All right. There we go. So he's got the metallic of the staff done. And we've got the metallic of hers. The shadow there. So it actually looks pretty similar. So I guess this this color covers pretty well. I've definitely had other colors. Well, yeah, I've definitely had other colors in the past that have not covered nearly as well, and they've really shown the other paint through. That's okay. So I think the last thing to do for these ones for today is to get some washes on their metallics. And I have, oh yeah, I've got a gloss metallic that I want to use for a gloss wash. So this is the Canoptic Armor Shade Gloss. There's a whole bunch, but essentially what it is it has a gloss finish in it. So it will dry quite shiny. Now she's already got, the armor itself is already quite shiny, but hey, let's make it even shinier. Plus, it's an excuse to use this paint. I put the agitator in, give it a stir. Grab our monster brush. Nice big one. Be a little careful with this because we don't want to go glossing her whole area. So, oh, sorry about that. Ooh, it's also a nice dark one. Like that. I think it's going to really make that armor plate that she's wearing look really interesting. Now we don't want to go with too much, so that'll pool, and then you'll get that dark line you have right at her belt there. You don't really want that, so we're just going to clean off our brush and come in and wick it up with the clean brush. All right, so that's gonna dry. Have that done, and we can do some finishing detail work on her 2 weeks from now. But for this guy, I'm gonna grab, for his wash, I'm gonna grab the Beltane green. We're gonna wash his with the green color. I'll be honest, I always like that little noise that it makes every time it sort of pull the paint off the shaker. It's a fun noise. All right. Ooh. There we go. See, and this has gone from just sort of a kind of a simple brass color to now a very interesting color. All right. Now, so there's his staff is going to dry, and it looks like I may not have let the brass dry enough, which is a problem. We'll worry about that later. So for this particular one, it might not be too bad. Alrighty. That was a lot of fun. So now we've got these two guys. Gotten a good start on them. We've got... Oh, hello. Good morning, King Wispy. Unfortunately, we are just about done for today. But this guy started out completely white. He has now got a good bit of color on him. Getting started. This gal started with the blue and the purple, but now she's got her skin tone and her armor and her pantaloons started. When we return to these guys, we'll get started on their cloaks, because cloaks are a very interesting sort of medium to play around with. Lets you really work on your layering techniques. We'll get pick out some details. This guy has a belt and a belt pouch and and the trim on his cloak. She's got a pair of daggers and her belt there. Plus, both of them have these sort of magic effects, and I'm going to play around with those a little bit, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. What I have to do is hair as well. But we managed to, in an hour, bang out a lot of work on these guys. So with another hour, we should probably have about both of them done. Hope that was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to leave some comments. If you'd like, if there's a specific technique that you'd like to see done, feel free to let me know. Also, these are going up on YouTube as well, so if you want to see the backlog of the videos and you don't want to hunt your way through Facebook, if you go to Zulu's Games, it's a channel on YouTube, you'll be able to watch the old backlog. So the question is, for the clear parts, will they be transparent? And if so, what paints will we use for that? I want to try and keep them transparent. I think with this one in particular, these little orbs are going to probably get a different color, and then the swoosh that goes with it is going to get a transparent color. So essentially all of your washes are opaque enough that, or these ones are technically called shades, but all your shades are opaque enough, see-through clear enough, that you'll be able to see some of the color through. We've also got some of these glazes which are particularly thin paints. So that'll also make it so we can see some of the color through it. I'm going to play around with that because I really would like it to still be translucent, because I think that adds a lot of fun effect to it. So that green on the staff I'm really digging that. Yeah, and hers is going to look a lot of fun too. So yeah. I will see you guys next week for more painting. We'll be returning to Battletech, but week after that, we will be returning to these two models. Oh, sorry, we got one more quick question. I missed this one a while ago. Mark, so these are paint handles. They have a spring here. It's a hard plastic on the bottom. Now, if you want a sort of a quick and easy solution, a little bit of glue tack and a bottle of paint, and you've now got a way to hold your miniature like that. So that's another way of using it. We do have at Zulus, we do have these paint handles. So if you're looking to get yourself some of those, that is an option. But yeah, just makes life a lot easier to paint with them, to have something to hold on to. So you're not holding on to this, and definitely not touching the model itself. Ooh, you can sort of already see the armor's started to dry, and it still has that nice shine to it. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Like I said, these will be up on YouTube hopefully in the next couple of days, as well as a backlog of other things. Until then, stay safe out there, enjoy your painting, and I will see you next week. Bye.